Hello and welcome to At the End of the Day, the show for aspiring entrepreneurs as told by inspiring entrepreneurs, and a place where we think you can learn everything you need to know in order to break down the barriers to entrepreneurship. Lock in those earbuds. I'm Chris Raimo. Well, everyone, welcome back to the At the End of the Day podcast. I'm your host, as always, Chris Raimo. I am here with another inspiring entrepreneur whose work specifically has to do with building inspiring entrepreneurs. I am here with Sean Atkinson. Thank you so much for joining me. Sean is a business strategy architect, and he is the creator of Founder OS. Sean, I could go through your bio, but nobody's going to be able to tell that story better than you. So if you wouldn't mind, please take us through and tell us all the things. How did you get started and what do you do on a daily basis?
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. The short version is I had started on two pathways. One, when my mother introduced my brother and I to the game of Monopoly. And it was something where my brother he's very much a reader, but not very good with math. And she wanted him to get better with math. So she thought that game would be a good way to be able to get him interested in it. And what ended up happening was I remember landing on Boardwalk one time, which the first time we played, and she was giving me the instructions. And I said, "Can I buy it?" And she said, "Sean, it's your money. You can do whatever you want." I'm an old soul. So when she said that, I was like, well, is that in a game or is that in life? Like, I need you to explain. And she said, no, I mean, if you have your own money, you can do whatever you want with it. And that was it for me. I instantly said, okay, I don't like how you make me have to clean up the house and do all of these things to be able to get my allowance. If I can figure out how to make my own money, you can keep your money and you can keep your chores. And that was how I basically got my introduction into it. And then from the experience standpoint, my mother started working for Atlantic Records and Atco Records. So this is going back some years. So I was about 6, 7 years old when she started working there. And one of the first things that she told me was she introduced me to personas, because she said, you're going to see a lot of people that you may hear on the radio or you may see on TV or something like that, but what they're representing may not be who that person is. And again, old soul, I'm going, okay, that's fascinating to me. What do you mean? And she's like, well, they may seem like they like kids, so don't run up to them and think that they naturally are. What you have to do is learn how to read the room. And that was just another opportunity for me to be able to go, okay, this is a world that seems like it's something that would be fascinating to me. And this is back in the days where, you can go into work and people find things cute. So when you're asking questions beyond your years, people tend to they give you a little more rope, and especially if they see you're doing something with it. So I would say, fast forwarding a little bit again, I was asking questions and they would give me homework. So they would say, if you want to be able to understand advertising, marketing, and things like that, I want you, when you get on the train, I want you to start, like one of the first assignments they gave me, they said, I want you to start to recognize what neighborhood you're in based on the advertisements that you see. I wasn't 10 years old, but I could tell you, I'm in New York, so it's the melting pot. So I was able to say, I'm in a Spanish neighborhood, I'm in an Irish neighborhood, I'm this, I'm that. And I would go back to a job and have these conversations with them. And they said, well, how did you know? Well, it was the language. Okay, now I need you to take it a level deeper. Start looking at the images. What were they trying to say? What were they doing with this? What were they doing with that? And that was the introduction to that. And between the personas, the entrepreneurial side of it and everything else, I was hooked. And I just knew that it was something I wanted to be able to do. And again, fast forwarding, that's when I say, okay, not only is this something I want to be able to do, but it's something I need to understand well enough to be able to decide where I would be best fitted for it. And that allowed me to be able to start gathering that information very, very early in life. And everything since then has been just gathering that information and understanding the process.
I heard you pass that on to the folks that you work with. And it looks, from everything that I've learned, in various ways, right? Big business, small business, it doesn't matter. So what would you say is the crux of your business now as a strategy architect? Somebody, give me a scenario. Somebody comes to you. Is it as simple as a business concept and we start designing from there? Or I've been doing this for 20 years, but I need a rewrite. What is the preeminent purpose here and work that you do?
Great question. For me, one of the things that I love about what I get to do now is I get to say it depends. And that's one of the best parts about it. So when you spend a certain amount of time on the corporate side, you have to do things a certain way and it's structured a certain way. For me, it's having a conversation with someone, understanding their goals, their definition of success, and then their surrounding circumstances, because that part is the part that always kind of separates what I do from what other people may do. I like to have those conversations. So if it's someone that isn't an entrepreneur, but they're thinking about entrepreneurship, then I have a conversation with them about, well, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? And what's driving you? Is it something that's momentary or is it something that's long term? Because someone, in some cases, they may be looking at going into entrepreneurship because they see the writing on the wall at the job. People are starting to get laid off, and they have to figure out what they're going to do. Or their partner may get laid off, and now they have to be the breadwinner. So they're trying to figure out how to be able to bring in more money and things like that. Those are temporary situations that I can put a Band-Aid on. What happens after that situation changes? Is this still going to be something that you want to be able to do? And knowing that, that's where the architect kicks in, because that lets me know how to be able to structure something so it fits their situation. And really what I do is I teach situational awareness. And it's understanding, what's your situation? Are you aware that this is something for the short term? Is this something for the long term? Those kind of conversations allow me to be able to build something custom out for the person from there.
There was something that you had written in your website when I was doing some of the research early on, and it was that I wrote a note here, most businesses don't stall because they lack effort. They stall because they misidentify the game they're playing and the constraint governing it. And my goodness, I don't know if, a singular statement has like identified, it is a game. It is a game, and not in a negative connotation on your plate, but man, every step, every thought has consequences, sometimes dire consequences. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make the wrong decisions, right? Just like you do in a game, just like you do in Monopoly. I shouldn't have bought that. I should, whatever. But it is how you adapt and get. So please just tell us that a little bit more about that perspective of it being a game and the way that you go about strategizing success around that.
Sure. Whenever you play a game, there are rules attached to it. And you have to understand the rules of engagement to understand how to navigate the game. So one of the reasons I can tell you the origin story of how it really came back to me, and this was more recent. It's one of those things where sometimes you're doing something, but you couldn't put a name to it. This was something where I started looking at, okay, I'm looking at how many new entrepreneurs are entering into entrepreneurship. The feeds are saturated, so you can post great content, but it's there for like 5 minutes and then it could disappear. So I started looking at, okay, well, these are user-generated platforms. They need us as much as we need them. But how do I navigate each one of these platforms to make the most of it? And what I started looking at was, okay, so these are the gatekeepers. I've been doing it the way that I want to be able to do it. What I needed to be able to understand is they're the gatekeepers. And when you deal with a gatekeeper, you have to understand how to play by their rules. So, for example, I was looking at YouTube and I said, okay, I need to start posting some things on YouTube. And then I got triggered because I'm looking at some people post things and I'm going, you're telling people that it's easier for you to do things than it actually is. And I'm actually giving them the answers and mapping everything out and showing them, here's how you actually do it. And they were getting way more views and clicks and all the rest of that than I was. And I was saying, well, they're telling you things, but they're operating under semantics. And I started going, okay, I got to figure out what's going on, because it was just driving me crazy. So I started using AI. I started having a conversation. I do a lot of that where I'll have a conversation with it to do a lot of my brainstorming. And one of the things it came back to me with was, well, they're successful because they're playing by the rules of YouTube. And that's when it clicked for me to go, oh, okay. Yeah, based on what you're saying, I haven't been playing by the rules, because YouTube is designed for you to be able to kind of trigger someone to do more searching. And then they start to go down the rabbit hole. What I was doing was giving answers. They don't want you to give answers. They want you to ask the right questions to make people go look for the answers. And the longer you stay on the platform, the more they get their advertising and things like that. So it prompted me to say, okay, well, now based on that, let me restructure the way that I'm building everything out. And I'm going to start with the gatekeeper first. And then I'm going to say, okay, well, now based on this gatekeeper, what are the rules of engagement with that gatekeeper? And once you start to realize that, then it allows you to be able to start to piece everything else together. So the OS is basically situational awareness. It's understanding who's the gatekeeper. Okay, so then what are the rules for engagement with that gatekeeper? And then once you figure that part out, then it's, okay, well, what are the pathways that are available to me that best suit me? And once you can figure that part out, then it leads into the other thing that I teach, which is a little more difficult, but it's pattern recognition. So pattern recognition is something I think people that are more seasoned tend to pick up on, but pathway recognition is something you can do very early on in your business journey.
And that all goes full circle to something you said at the onset here, which was the answer is it depends. It's a different strategy, depends. And the thing that the light bulb that went off in my head when you said that, and I've always felt this in my own business or different ventures, starting with the end in mind. What is it? Am I building a business because I want to just provide stability for a family? Am I building it because I want a legacy? Am I building it because I want to spin it off and sell it? Am I building it to merge with PE venture somewhere down the road and take it global? What is it that I want to do? And that answer can certainly change as you go. Oh, I don't want to do that anymore. I thought that was the answer. No, I don't. I've learned I don't want to. But you can't, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the architect, but you can't start building unless you have some semblance of what it is that you are trying to drive to. You can't start laying that foundational brick.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There are some people that like to work start to finish. I like to work finish to start. Where are you trying to go? Tell me what your definition of success is. And one of the other things that I learned about myself is I'm a dimensional thinker. So I don't start with like one or two things. I start with all the options and then I start to rule them out and go, okay, based on that, we can take these away. We can take these away. We can take these away. These are the ones that make the most sense for you. Which one is the one that you want to be able to go with? And that allows people to have options, but options that are more customized to them. So I think when you work finish to start, it gives you the opportunity to be able to ask your why. It makes you look at your surrounding circumstances. One of the things that I tell people is your personal decisions affect your professional and your professional affect your personal. So there are a lot of people that say, oh, well, I want to be able to, start my business and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that with it. And one of my follow-up questions is, okay, well, how do people in your life feel about that? Like, how are you set up for that to be able to work? And I'll speak from my experiences. I know that I got into it because my lady at the time said, you worked way too many hours. And I want you to be able to spend more time with me. I want to go on vacations. I want to do more things. I had to take that into consideration and say, okay, well, what type of entrepreneur would I be? And that's where I basically created something where I said there's basically 10 types of entrepreneurs. So again, that kind of goes back to the pathways. If you're someone that doesn't have a long runway, like you don't have a lot of time to be able to try to figure it out, don't try to do something that requires you to be able to innovate and motivate people in ways that they're not aware that they have that need. Look at something that's already existing. So for me, one of the ways that I would describe it is in a simulator. Go into something where it already exists and find out what's that little piece that someone's missing. Like everyone's doing it this way, and here's where people feel like they're falling short. Go fill in that part where someone feels like they're falling short. So this way you're not creating something brand new. You're not trying to introduce someone to something that they never thought about before. That's a shorter runway than what I do. I'm a disruptor. I'm someone that I've always been that way. I've always been the type of person that would look at something and go, oh, there's a better way to do that. And that just comes from being able to look at patterns and being able to look at how things are structured in the process. And the better you understand the process, the better you can find the little blind spots and the weak spots and be able to do that. So on the corporate side, I was great at being able to look far down the road and say, you got a great business. You've got all of these things set. Here's some of the blind spots that you're not seeing. In entrepreneurship, it's different, where one of the things that I've realized is on the entrepreneurial side, you have to remove that immediate thing so that people can kind of see the forest for the trees. Like if you don't take care of that first thing, then they're not going to be able to see all the other things that could actually take place. So finish to start. That's the main way that you start, but then you have to go right back to the beginning and say, okay, well, this is where you're saying that you want to be able to go. Let's look at the immediate obstacles and things that you have in the way now that would allow you to start to be able to make progress. I know when it comes to it depends. I don't know how many, I'm older, so there are some people that don't know about this. There's a type of book, it was like choose your own adventure books. And it was, you read to a certain part of the book and then it would ask you a question. And then based on your question, it would tell you to turn to a page. I was so fascinated by that because it was the same size as a regular book, but it had like hundreds of stories within it. And I was like, how in the world did you do that? So when you hear me say it depends, my whole business model is actually built around the choose your own adventure books. Choose your own adventure. You tell me what it is that you want to be able to do. And I'm going to show you different pathways on how to be able to get there based on understanding the process and understanding the surrounding circumstances. And yeah, that's how I got it.
I remember those books. So, and I read those all the time. Those were great. And they kind of went away and they seem to be maybe coming back a little bit now because I have a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old, and we'll be on Kindle looking for a new book and I see them popping up. So right now we're actually reading Scooby-Doo and the Case of the Were Monster or something like that. It's choose your, as the kids are so engaged because they're like, no, 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 do this one, go this way.
Love it. That was me as a kid, and it taught me consequences. But it also allowed me, when we're talking about the game, it allowed me to be able to cheat a little bit. And I would go, I chose this, and then I realized, oh, this is going in a direction I did not like. I'm going to go back to that original question, and I'm going to answer that a little bit differently. And when you pair that with understanding entrepreneurship and everything else, it's, I think, where a lot of people end up running into an issue is they go down a path and they feel like they have to stay on that path. One of the things that I try to point out to them is there's nothing wrong with a pivot. And a pivot is just realizing, you know what, that was something that was great for that situation, but now I'm in a different situation. So now I have to kind of refine what it is that I'm trying to get done so that it aligns with where I'm at now. And that kind of goes back to what you were saying of there are people that will say, well, this is what I'm doing. Yeah, that was great for then. But that's why I said sometimes if someone starts their business and their partner is out of work and they're saying, well, I need to make more money. Okay, what happens when they get a job? And then all of those things that they have more time to do, they don't have time to do. At some point, some of those things that you moved over to their to-do list because they had the free time, they're not going to have that time. So now you have to figure out how to be able to balance that stuff back out again.
That's so true. So what we do in our day work here is it's in franchising, right? And so we might be speaking with a candidate who's looking at the concept and wants to join the system, and they could check all the boxes, and we think this is going to be a great partnership, et cetera, et cetera. But if there's a partner tied to them, whether in the household or otherwise, like we need to meet the partner too. Oh, no, no, no. He's not going to have anything to do with it. No, we need to meet the partner. You don't understand. He's about to be the partner of an entrepreneur. And that is a whole different game. And I need to make sure that you're both ready for that because it means, you're not going to be there for dinner every night. It means you're not going to have a routine. It means you are going to get up in the middle of the night and have to run to the business because the burglar alarm's going off. It means, what, yeah. And if he's not on board or she's not on board or whatever the case is, we won't proceed with it because that's a recipe for failure. If you don't have that support system that understands, hey, you got to do this. It's going to be demanding and I support you. Without that, it's a no-go.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why it's baked into everything that I do. I would say pretty much what you've described, it's almost a requirement because I need to be able to not only understand where you're at, but I need to understand where they're at because your motivation is going to change. Like people are motivated by all kind of things, but it's not sustainable. One of the things that I've told people is, and this is why I map things out, I do a lot of things with milestones because milestones, one, help you see your progress. Two, it keeps it from being overwhelming. And then the other part is it helps with the support system that you have around you because there's a shelf life to that original idea, an original explanation that you give the people in your life. You can say, oh, well, it's going to take me 6 months to be able to do this. Is it though? Like, can we guarantee that? And if it ends up taking 8 months or 9 months, how are they going to feel about it? And, sometimes this is the thing that I try to explain to entrepreneurs is someone can be agreeable to something because it sounds good initially. But once you're in it, then they have they have the right to change their mind. And that level of support, it can sway. It can be something where it's not going to be consistent. Someone will say, yeah, I support you. I definitely want you to be able to do this. And then when they start to realize, and again, I'll speak for myself, lady at the time, she said, I want you to be an entrepreneur. You work too many hours. I was like, you do realize it means that I'm going to have to work more hours, not less.
I was going to make a comment when you mentioned that the first time, but you can achieve that, but there's a journey to get there. It doesn't happen in a switch. Yeah.
Yeah. With that, I will say, and this is why I broke down the 10 types of entrepreneurs, because Me being a disruptor, my runway was going to be way longer than it would be for someone else.
Sure.
So for me, I had to be able to explain that and say, listen, I can do what it is that you're asking me, but the way that I'm structured, the way that I'm built, the way that my personality and everything is, being a disruptor, it's what you have to understand is you're basically coming in and saying to all the people that have an existing system and a process, you're saying there's a better way to be able to do it. You're worse than someone that's taking a client. Because when you show someone that there's a better way to be able to do something, more efficient way to be able to do it, you're not just taking a client, you're forcing them to change their whole system. So I'm not just a competitor, I'm a nuisance. And I've been on the corporate side to know when there's smaller businesses that figured out how to be able to do something, their thing is either we need to acquire them or we need to crush them. So you have to know what kind of situation you're putting yourself into. And for me, it was going to be a longer runway. So yes, we can both laugh about it because I went into it going, it's not going to be what you think it is. And one of those things where over a period of time, where I initially had the buy-in, she actually got to the point where she said, you know what, this is taking longer than I thought it was. I didn't know it was going to do this. I didn't know it was going to do that. And that's why I believe in doing those check-ins. Yeah. And this is why I structure things with milestones, because each milestone allows you to be able to check in with the people in your life and be able to say, okay, I know what I originally said. Here's how long it took for me to get to this spot. This is my check-in to be able to give you another update and make sure that you're still equally as bought in as you were originally. And if you're not, then it gives you a pivot point to start to figure out how to be able to do what's going to allow you to be able to maintain the life and the people in your life that you want to be able to keep there.
That's tremendous insight. And I think something that people don't consider, right? When you jump in, you take that plunge, it's just waves crashing. And if you do have someone with you, you're taking them along for the ride, sometimes willingly, sometimes not. And yeah, it can cause a lot of disruption in a personal life, even with children, when you're sucked in and you're doing the thing and you're building, right? People say to me, friends will say, oh, you work so much. I don't see it that way. I build so much, right? I'm building. I'm that part. It's not work to me, but I understand, right? And I have to be ever conscious and ever cognizant of the 6-year-old and the 10-year-olds who may not understand all of that just yet, right? But I also try to educate. I talk to them about what it is that I do, that Dad does, and we franchise a bit. The business that we have. Well, other people want to do that, and they want us to teach them how to do that, right? And I get buy-in from them. And so if I have a call at 7:30 or 8:00 at night with somebody on the West Coast, right? It isn't, why is Dad ignoring us? It's, oh, is that somebody who wants to do one of the? Yes. Yeah, it was. Oh, cool. So do we get to go to California? Like it's, yeah. But that buy-in, you got to be aware of it and bring everyone along. So when you sit down and you start scribing things out with an entrepreneur, what are some of the classic resistances that you get from them? Like, help me design, help me build this thing, help me strategize it. Oh, I don't know if I want to do that. Oh, I don't know if I can do that. Where do they most often pump the brakes, and how do you help get them through it?
I love that question. One of the things that I run into a lot are people seeking validation as opposed to strategy and insights. And this is where they run into an issue. There are people that are seeking, when I say validation, there are people that they'll say, oh, well, I want to coach. But really what they're saying is, I want someone that's going to tell me that I'm right. And that's really not what my job is. My job is to make sure that you get where you're supposed to be able to go without necessarily going through the mud and all the extra things that's going to compromise your life. Like, I know the blind spots because I've not only been through them, I've spent decades looking at people go through it. And this is why I'm looking at all of these things and saying, okay, there's blind spots, there's hidden costs, there's all of these things. And what I have to be able to do is point them out to them and say, okay, this is why I asked what your surrounding circumstances are. This is why I asked, who are the people in your life? Is this a situational thing that you're trying to address? Because if it's a situation, I can create something specifically for this situation. But once we correct that situation, then we need to have that follow-up conversation for what's next, what comes after. So validation is one of the main things that I run into. The other is a credibility thing. And I find it fascinating because I remember being on the corporate side, and the difference between the corporate side and the entrepreneurial side is when you get to a certain size, people realize they don't want to be the smartest one in the room. What makes them brilliant is that they know how to hire smart people that know how to do specific things, because they don't want to have to spend all their time trying to be a jack of all trades and great at everything. They want to bring people in that know how to do things. So I was great at being able to look really far down the road and be able to say, yeah, these are some of the things that you need to be able to look out for. Program manager, too many titles to go over, but essentially I could go out with a salesperson, listen to them, the client, and where the salesperson would say, okay, well, here's the products that we have. And my thing is, as a solutions architect, I'm going to say, based on what you described, here's what I heard. Here's the product suite that we have. It's either a great fit for what you're saying, or we would have to create something in order to be able to accommodate what it is that you're looking for. And that was something that I was really good at doing on that side. What I had to learn on the entrepreneurial side, and this is something I want to stress for anyone that's on the corporate side that's trying to transition over to the entrepreneurial side, is you get paid for looking far down the road as a, on the corporate side. On the entrepreneurial side, you have to learn how to be able to make that adjustment and say, you have to understand readiness. And I'll give you an example. I spoke to a guy who was going to launch an AI product, and he walked me through use case one. And I was like, yeah, I totally see it. I get it. And I said, what are you going to do for use case 2, 3, and 4? And he kind of glazed over and he was like, no, you don't understand. I was like, no, I do understand. I'm saying you've got something that's so good that once people use it the first way, what you have to understand is the liberties that people take when they're like, well, if it can do this, then maybe it can do this, and maybe it can do this. And I said, at that point, what you have to be able to make a decision on, and this is where I basically try to explain to people, there are preventative measures and reactionary solutions. Preventative measures are the things that you can do before it becomes an issue, and reactionary solutions are the things that you try to address once it's out there. In his case, I said, there are going to be people that use your product and they're going to say, well, I think it can do this and I think it can do this. So I said, you either have to prepare yourself for the fact that people are going to come to you with new use cases, and either you're going to have to embrace them or you're going to have to say intended use only.
When you sit, like, how do I want to frame this question? How far through the evolution of that business or place in their business, if they've already been around 10 years, they're coming to you to, how far are you taking them through? We have an initiative. I'm going to get you through this initiative. Boom, it's yours again, and off you go. Or is long term, short term? What does that framework kind of look like?
The honest response is it depends, and it depends on how well we coexist. I had to learn from doing the work that there are some projects that I got on, and it was so painful for both of us. I learned to put an exit strategy. This is why I have milestones. The milestone is not just for them, but it's also for me, because I realized I started working with some people and it was painful. And it was one of those things of, I know what I'm looking at. And if I have to argue and drag you down the road with me to be able to get you to, if I can't want it more than you want it. And if I find myself in that position, then it's something where I'm going to get you to that milestone. I'm going to give you a deliverable. And I'm going to say, now I delivered on everything that I said I was going to deliver on. Because you want to be able to do it in a certain way that I feel like it's going to be more complicated and it's not going to get you the results that I want you to be able to have, I'm sure there's someone that's going to want to be able to do it whatever way you want them to do it for you. That's where it goes from, you don't want a strategist, you want an assistant, or you want someone that's like a virtual assistant or an employee that's going to do whatever it is that you say. That's not what I do. So I bake those exit strategies in. So I do it by milestone. And once we achieve a milestone, one of the things that I ask them is, every time we complete the milestone, here's where we're at. Here's what the next steps could look like. Is this something that you want to be able to participate in?
There's an element of human nature in there, and I'm not sure if there's a way to get through to it or around it. Maybe the best thing is to just identify it and then play it like you've played it. But that kind of thing runs into what we do on a regular basis. Somebody will step into the franchise system. I don't want to do this on my own. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. You guys got the thing that's been figured out, successful. Give me a piece of that. Let me, right? But then once the money's in and once the work starts and it is exhaustive and then there's a lot on the line and everything else, it kind of can shift to, I want to do this the way I think I need to. And there's a conflict there because you literally paid us to do it the way that the way that it worked. And so you have to, it's relationship building and helping both sides see that there's value either way, but what as the architect. So something he mentioned earlier, a corporate and going from the corporate world to the entrepreneurial world, how do you generally advise? And the answer can be, it depends. That's fine.
Most likely, yeah.
Because I see two from the corporate world, two very, very general pathways to entrepreneurship. I'm doing my regular work, my 9 to 5, and I'm going to start building my business. Maybe it starts as a side gig. Maybe it's a project. I'm brewing beer in the garage, whatever it is, right? And I'm going to continue. I'm going to do that nights, and I'm going to do my day job, and that's going to fund my ability to do this, and so on and so forth. And then you touched on it earlier. I lost my job at the corporate. Now what am I going to do? I'm going to get into entrepreneurship. And I think when inspiration strikes, it strikes. So it's hard to manage that. But if you had to advise, do you find one path a better path than the other, or is what it is?
It depends. This is why everything that I do starts with an assessment. And it's assessing the situation and the surrounding circumstances. It's assessing the person's character and how they're built. There are some people that they want to be business owners, but they don't want to run a business. And I need to be able to identify that, to be able to say, okay, so then what we need to be able to do is allow you to be the person that can own the business, but you need to hire smart and allow the people to be able to do the things that they need to be able to do in order for that to be able to work. So technically in those situations, you may be like an investor and you just oversee everything to make sure that everything is working properly. And then there are the people that are very, very hands-on. And they're not going to be someone that is going to they have trust issues. They're very hands-on. They don't want other people in doing things because they don't believe anybody's going to do it the way that they can do it. Then I have to structure something that's built around the business that allows them to be able to do it themselves, but outsource or train in ways that allow them to be able to scale, but scale within the confines of what they're comfortable with. So a lot of what the process looks like is learning the individual and then learning not just their situation, but how to build trust, because trust is the biggest part of all of it. But as far as it goes, when it comes to the pathways, there are 3 pathways that I look at. And one of the things that I've been kind of laying this out and created some programs around it, but there are some people that are just built to be employees. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, they don't want to have to deal with any of the accountability or responsibility or anything like that. If you find yourself laid off, do some consulting work. Because I can tell you from someone that's been on the corporate side, when you get into that interview and someone says, well, what have you been doing with your time while you're unemployed? And your response is interviewing. I'm going to tell you what they used to hear on the corporate side. So you spoke to a bunch of people and they all decided that they didn't want you. Why would I want you if all of these other people said that they didn't want you? So by qualifying yourself, by saying, you know what, I did some consulting work, I leveraged my expertise, I was doing this, I was doing that. You're giving yourself more leverage when you go into those situations. So one pathway is consulting, like just do some consulting work, use that to be able to leverage it. Because one of the other things that happens is if you've been someplace for a long period of time, you know how to be able to do it the way that company does it. One of the things that I've also noticed over my years on the corporate side is there are people that'll say, oh, I know this platform, I know how to do this, I know how to do this. No, you're not going to do it the way the company knew how to do it. And in some cases, when you get into interviews, I've realized that sometimes it's better to hire a new person that doesn't have the experience than to untrain someone on how to do something. Because every time you try to show them how to do something, like, oh, well, the way that I did it was, yeah, but we don't do it this way. And then you have to untrain them. And the level of time it takes to untrain them and get their mind to understand there's a different way to be able to do it, you could have just taught somebody new how to be able to do it. So I just want to share that part, because there are some people that are interviewing and don't understand why they're hitting the wall. That's the wall. That's the wall. The other part is portfolio careers. If you're not sure if entrepreneurship is for you, then start with the consulting, get yourself a client, work it up to 3 to 5 clients, and start to get a feel for, is this something that I can do? And I say portfolio careers are more work-life balance than the full responsibility of entrepreneurship, because the way that I explain it is there are 3 pathways. There's employees and there's entrepreneurship. You're beholden to people on both of those. If you're really saying that I want to be my own boss and I want to be able to do whatever I want to be able to do, really what you're saying is you want to have a portfolio career, because as an employee, you're gonna have to do what they're telling you to do. As a business owner, you have to do what your audience is telling you to do. Like if they say this is what I want and this is how I want it, you kind of have to go with what it is that they're saying, because if you don't do what they're saying, you're not going to get paid. But as a portfolio career, you can pick and choose the types of clients that you want to be able to work with. You have more autonomy and you're not necessarily risking everything. You can still have that work-life balance. If you're someone that is going into it and you're saying, well, I want to be able to spend more time with the kids and the family and things like that, do something that allows you to be able to set a goal of, I want to make this much money, but I only want to work this many hours. I will help somebody build out a business model that says, well, then you need to generate this much money, because let's not confuse revenue with profit. That is a big problem. Well, I sold this much, and well, that doesn't mean that you made that much. We have to actually build something out so that when you say how I'm going to price something, it's not only reasonable to the audience, but it's something on the back end that by the time you finish paying for all the other things, the operating costs and all the rest of that, you still have enough left over for you to be able to do the things that you want to be able to do. So these are some of the factors that I look at when someone says, well, I'm thinking about entrepreneurship. It's let's have this conversation. And that's where it goes back to what's your definition of success and what's your why.
Thought about that question in terms of, like, we've seen it a few times over, somebody getting engaged with the idea of entrepreneurship out of, I'll say it for lack of a better term, out of desperation. Maybe it's opportunity, maybe it's desperation, but it can be a hard road to do it when, I've lost my job. Now you don't have that regular income coming in to help you, give you that buffer to kind of plan and plot and do things the way that maybe it should be done or you want to do it. So on one side, it looks easier, or maybe easy is not the right word, but it looks like a little bit
complicated. Yeah.
less complicated if you're building as you're working. But there's a flip side to that for maybe somebody like a disruptor like yourself or myself, where I kind of do my best work under pressure, right? If I'm too comfortable, I'm really not going to push. And it's when I push is when I uncover the best things. So I'm not saying go out and get yourself fired and then start your business. That's not the advice. But if that's the place that you find yourself in, that doesn't have to be a bad thing either, right? Because that's when you move fast and break things, and moving fast and breaking things is when you find the best.
Absolutely. I think desperation is going to teach you so many different things about yourself and your surrounding circumstances. There are a lot of people that say a lot of wonderful things when things are going well. And then when things aren't well, that's when you start to notice who leaves, who stays, and all of the rest of the things that contribute to your situation and how you get out of it. I have a joke with people when we start having conversations about desperation. I said, there's one person that's always going to be there for you, and it's called rock bottom. Like, rock bottom is always going to be there no matter what. And it changes your perspective on everything. There are a lot of people that say, oh, well, if it was me, I would this. Okay. Let's see if that's what you really believe and what you will do when rock bottom kicks in. It's going to show you what you're made of and who's around you and who's going to support you and all the rest of that. So I think one of the things that it's really important for people to understand is desperation can do one of two things. It can open doors that you never thought that you can open, but it's also going to make you susceptible to people that prey on you. And this is why I take such umbrance with a lot of the gurus. And I joked with you earlier about it to say, all you have to do is, as soon as I hear someone say, all you have to do is, I'm so triggered and irritated because I got into this to be able to affect the failure rate. Like 20% in the first year, 30% by the second year, 50% by the fifth year. That was before. Now we have AI and it's lowered the entry rate, the level of entry for people to be able to get into entrepreneurship. And they don't understand that the failure rate goes up. So it's not something that like, oh, well, once I'm in it for a while, it'll get easier. No, it doesn't work that way. Like a lot of people fail.
More money, more problems. Like, it just gets hard.
Indeed. Like, it's the way that I explain it is you just have further to fall. And it's why one of the things that I also point out to people, they're like, I was doing good, but now all of a sudden, like, it seems harder. Life tests you when you're just about to hit that next level because it wants to make sure that you're ready to be able to maintain at that next level. Every time you're going to enter a room, it's going to check whether or not you're meant to be in that room, because once you're in it, then it's like, okay, well, how do I make sure that I can stay in that room? So like, there are a lot of people that will say, well, your business doesn't really start until you're at six figures. Yes and no. There are challenges that happen on your way to six figures that you will never have to experience again once you get to six figures, once you're able to sustain all the rest of that. So I look at it as business journey stages. And I basically say you've generated no money, like you haven't done anything. Then there's around, let's say 1,000 to 30,000. Then there's 30 to 50. Then there's 50 to 100. Then there's 100 to say 200. Each one of those stages comes with its own set of challenges. And if you don't understand what's taking place at that, so For the first two stages, you're trying to validate your idea. You're trying to prove to everybody around you that it's not just a good business idea, it's a good business opportunity. Two completely different things. A good business idea is something that you talk about. A good business opportunity is something that other people are willing to invest in or believe in you enough to be able to say, yeah, I will take some of the things that you have on your to-do list off of your to-do list because I believe in you and I believe in you're going to be able to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. That's the validation stage. Then the game gets real. Like, let's take it back to the game. Then the game gets real. Okay, so you figured something out. You have a good idea. There are people that are willing to pay you for it. Now, how do you turn that into something that's going to be sustainable, that's going to allow you to be able to generate the money to replace either the revenue that you were making being an employee or whatever you need to be able to do to be able to survive? And that's when things get scary because it's like, okay, now you're on the tightrope and you're starting to look and you go, okay, it was okay when I was just 10 feet off the ground. I sprained an ankle. When the higher it goes up, every time you go up, you're like, oh, it's getting a little high up here. And you need to start to be even more careful. And that's where you have to understand what level you're at, what room you're in, and understand the consequences of the actions. And the higher you go, the more you start to learn, okay, I have to be very, very careful because I'll put it this way, there are a lot of people that will start their business. Some broken clock could be right twice, so they can get to a certain point. But like, if you don't put a foundation in place, that's how you go from making a certain amount of money back to making no money because you have nothing to be able to cushion your fall when you fall. And it's not an if, it's a when. It's inevitable that at some point you're going to run into something that's going to throw you off. And that's where foundation comes in. Like, you have to have the things that allow you to go 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. You're still a step ahead. But if you don't have any foundation, then you're literally going back to scratch.
And that fall, that scratch, that cut, whatever that is, if you have that foundation, you get up, you dust yourself off, you pack a little dirt in there, you keep up. That's that scar tissue, right? You are getting tougher as you go. That now the next time you fall that same way, you bump that knee again. I mean, it's all metaphorical, but hey, that's nothing. That merely a flesh wound, and off you go. It's everything you said, gosh, so right on. I think of, just as again, not to tie it back to Prank, but as a franchisor, and you feel all the pressure and all the problems and all the challenges and everything else, and you go into like a IFA, International Franchise Conference or something like that, and you got people who've been doing this for 40 years, and you think you got problems, right? But they're on top, they're CEO of a 1,000-unit international franchise brand, right? And they got 47 lawsuits going, you know what I mean? And you kind of look at yourself, you're like, oh, okay,
Not so bad.
I kind of like it 10 feet up. I'm good. It's all perspective, really. So I don't want to take up any more time. You got lots of businesses to strategize out there.
This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, I really appreciate this. I have one quick question for you, if you don't mind. I ask it at the end of each conversation that we have. It's going to be a 2-part question. So number one, this thing that we call entrepreneurship, what is the part of this that no one ever talks about, but we really probably should?
Easier said than done. And you have to be okay with failing because every failure is a new iteration that shows you how to be able to do it better and how to be able to do it in a way that best suits you. So there are people that get into it trying not to fail. Fail as many times as you need to. And don't take it as something that's a failure. It's a learning moment. And once you learn that, like, it makes it so much easier to be an entrepreneur because the people that are trying not to fail are the people that fail the worst. And the people that embrace failure and say, you know what, this is something that is just part of the process are the people that learn from it. Because if you're documenting everything and you're keeping track of everything that you're doing, then you're able to go, well, where did I go wrong in that? And that's part of me talking about pattern recognition. I stopped taking L's years ago, because I realized everything is a learning moment. So for me, even if I have a bad client or if I have whatever it is, it's okay. What can I learn from that that's going to make me better for the next time it comes around? And that's where you learn red flags. That's when you learn all of these different things that make you better at what you do and create a better experience for the people that you want to be able to work with.
I love it. And that actually took care of the second question. It was, here we are at the end of the day podcast. And I was going to ask, what would you say to an aspiring entrepreneur to help them succeed? But I think you just nailed it.
I'll add to it. This will go back to me talking about why I baked in milestones. There are some people that take on Herculean tasks and say, well, I'm going to do this. If you don't put some milestones and some checkpoints in there, every time you look at that end goal, you'll forget how far you've come. So put checkpoints in that remind you where you started. I can't tell you every time I do those checkpoints, I talk about, well, let's go back and let's talk about where you were when we first started this conversation. Let's look at all the things that you were able to accomplish, because on those tough days, that's the thing that's going to keep you motivated. That's the thing that's going to make it so that you can get through to the next day, to the next level, to the next stage. If you just go start to finish and you think you're just going to be able to only focus on looking at the end goal, there are going to be days that you just don't have it. There are going to be days where life and everything test you, and you need that to be able to help you be able to figure out how to be able to continue on. So put in checkpoints, put in milestones. One of the things that I joke is, I realized when I first started doing it, coming from the corporate side, I could just give them instructions and they would follow it. When I got to the entrepreneurial side, I realized they don't want instructions. I could tell you exactly what to do, and you're going to turn around and do something other than what I told you to do. And then when you mess it up, then you're going to come back and say it didn't work. And I'm not, no, it's not that it didn't work. It's that you didn't listen. So by putting those milestones in place, those milestones and those checkpoints are the things that help you get back to the main road when you go left. And it's the things that help you keep perspective, is the things that help you maintain your perspective. And you need perspective in order to be able to see how you're progressing. And progress is the thing that you always need to be able to keep track of. So fail as often as you need to, learn from those moments, but also put in checkpoints and milestones that can allow you to be able to see the progress that you're making, because those two things are the things that make the unbearable business journey of entrepreneurship more bearable.
Fail, first attempt in learning, right? That was an acronym imparted on me a long time ago, and that has helped me tremendously. Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. This was awesome. I would love to do this again.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much. And for everyone listening, at the end of the day podcast, stories of inspiring entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. Get out there and build. Hey everyone, thanks for spending your time with us on At the End of the Day with Chris Raimo, a place for the dreamers, the doers, and the soon-to-be entrepreneurs. If you've been waiting for the right moment to chase your entrepreneurial dream, this is your time and space. Because success isn't about taking giant leaps, it's about taking that first step and then the next and the next, no matter how small. If today's episode gave you that spark, don't let fear extinguish it. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with someone who's ready to stop dreaming and start doing. Together, we will break down those barriers to entrepreneurship, one story, one insight, and one small business success at a time. Until next time, keep believing, keep building, and remember, at the end of the day, your entrepreneurial future is about to get lit.